Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I am Councillor Mohammed Ayub. I chair Traffic Management Subcommittee. I would like to welcome you to tonight's meeting, which is being used equipment connecting into the chamber in Microsoft Teams meeting. There is a live stream available through the Teams, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded on the council website afterwards. I have also just to announce that I had Councillor Tony Page and Councillor Barnett Ward are taking part via Teams. I'll move on to the first item, agenda item 1, declaration of interest. Do I have any from any of the councillors? No. I have an interest in the item agenda 6, which is a private vehicle use of the Kings Road bus lane. This item, when we get to it, I will ask Councillor Lozeni to take over the chair on my behalf. And moving on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting held January the 11th, 2024. Can I take these correct, councillors, correct minutes? Thank you. Item 3, we have questions from councillors and member of public. We have no questions from member of public, where we have a question from Councillor McKenna on the safety improvement on Redland Road. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask the chair, please. Green Party councillor Dave McElroy has suggested using some of the SIL local spend to remove the dangerous build-outs at the junction of Redlands Road and Aldcroft Road and put something more appropriate in its place. If this project isn't selected for SIL funding, can the lead councillor suggest other potential sources of funding so the changes can be made as soon as possible? Thank you.
Right. Can I invite the lead member for climate strategy and transport, Councillor Ennis, to provide a response on my behalf?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McCann, for your question. I refer Councillor McCann and Councillor McElroy to the requests for traffic management measures report that is regularly updated at this subcommittee, including this evening's agenda. Councillor McCann will be aware that this report contains an entry for this change, Appendix 3, Item 106, and the report indicates some of the possible funding sources for this and other requests that are on the list. Regarding the use of 15% local SIL funding, a nominations process was undertaken whereby all councillors for every party were given the opportunity to nominate projects in their ward for potential funding. A high number of nominations were received, which would significantly exceed the funding available. It will be a matter for Policy Committee to agree which projects are allocated funding, and it is expected that a decision will be made in a forthcoming meeting. No further comment on the likelihood of an individual project receiving funding can be provided at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Councillor McKenna, do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you for the answer, Councillor Ennis.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, which is petition. And we have a petitioner, Mr. Sam Darlington. Is he in the room? Right, sir. The mic's not there? Oh.
There we go. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors, for being willing to hear the petition today. I'd also like to thank Councillor John Ennis as our local councillor in Southcote Ward for hearing local residents and the school's concerns about this in the past. This has been a persistent issue for decades, as parking, I'm sure you all will know, is a persistent issue across the borough. The parking situation, particularly around school drop-off and pickups, is dangerous, disruptive, and disorderly in Southcote. Parking examples of these dangerous behaviors include parking in the exclusion zone of zebra crossings, on verges, which are in important sightline areas, and blocking access to pavements in an area with 3 schools immediately in the vicinity. Hundreds of peoples aging from the age of 5 are walking, scooting, and cycling every weekday. Local residents have been late for work and taking kids home due to people parking persistently across our drives. And when police have been contacted and involved, they've shown frustration with RBC council officers for failing to enforce under the applicable enforcement legislation. Buses and ambulances have drawn to a standstill, sometimes disrupting the bus timetable upwards of 15 minutes and having rippling effects on transport across the borough and train transfer timings. Local residents and school staff have been verbally and physically assaulted when attempting to solve the issues ourselves, including myself when I was trailed home and had to use my own experience from a previous job on security to knock off my trail. When school staff particularly have faced this and made it to the point where when they were offered a school street, they didn't want to take it because they were fearful that there would be no support there to help them in the event that they were assaulted. When FOIs were conducted to the area schools, it revealed that officials had been raising this issue for numerous years, almost quarterly for a decade, with council officers to no result at all. They've been asking for enforcement officers and none have come. Instead, they've been told by officers, quote, "There is nothing the school can do," unquote, and been offered school streets, which again, don't have the resourcing to fix the problem, protect local residents and school staff. Part of this petition is to bring parking bays to Southcote Lane, and they aim to make it easier for the council's enforcement officers to spot unlawful, dangerous, and nuisance parking, to issue the penalties that are necessary to provide the force behind local efforts by the schools and ourselves, and reducing this behavior. Ultimately, we'd like to see these parking bays not only run from the length in the petition, which is from Southcote Farm Lane to Circuit Lane, but to run from Bath Road all the way down to Circuit Lane. When the borough implemented the morning bus gate at Southcote Lane going eastbound at the roundabout with Circuit Lane, they didn't put into effect any measures that protect Silchester Road, and therefore that traffic is now diverting up Silchester Road immediately past Southcote Primary School, as you have reception-age children attempting to walk into school. You can imagine there are 3 schools here, and you have that level of traffic and the bypass traffic from Bath Road now traveling through. And finally, we want to request the review of parking permits in these areas. Thank you. Not only in regards to a proper gate, basically a restricted traffic area for Silchester Road, but to ensure this problem doesn't spread to the other roads in the area, whether that be Folly Lane or Southcote Farm Lane, Shipley, where residents literally can't even get out of their houses sometimes because people literally park so close and they can't even move their cars. In conclusion, this is one proposal of many possible measures. We want engagement from Reading Borough Council. We deserve engagement from Reading Borough Council. This has gotten so much of a nuisance issue that local residents
Just to
have-
remind you, sir, you have a half minutes left.
Yeah. local residents are considering private prosecutions, which ultimately would deprive Reading Borough Council of revenue that was sought when those prosecutions are successful. Sending enforcement officers from Catesgrove, for example, where the head teacher at Southcote Primary has said she constantly sees enforcement officers, sending one to Southcote 1 day a week would solve many of these issues. The parents know they're doing something wrong. The kids are reminding parents they're doing something wrong. We need RBC to show them that they are doing something wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Time. Thank you, sir. Stay seated. Thank you for coming in, bringing that petition in. Can I ask James Penman, our officer, to introduce the item requesting control measures in Southcote? Mr. Penn.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for presenting the petition to us. So the recommendation on the report, members, is that we will take away the requests that have come through. We'll investigate those with colleagues in various departments. It does touch a few departments. We'll feed back initial ideas to all councillors, and we'll come back with a petition response report to a future meeting with decisions and the outcomes of those meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
James.
would,
Councillor Ennis.
yeah, thank you, Chair. I would thank Sam for bringing the petition. I think we need to do a little bit of fact checking. Enforcement officers have gone round to Silchester Road because they've complained to me about getting tickets. So that's not true. That enforcement officers don't, because they do. It's a complex issue. Mainly the complaints and the issues and the safety aspects has been Silchester Road. That's been a major problem for a long time because of the bus camera and the turning round. Is something that we do have to solve. We've tried numerous occasions. It's a new one on Southcote Farm Lane and Southcote Lane, but I think it's worth looking at and seeing it. I was down there today actually when the schools went out. Southcote Farm Lane, Southcote Lane. Silchester Road is a well-known problem. We put double yellows. We've offered quite a lot. I don't think it was too bad today, but that's me. But I certainly think we need to look at that and produce a response. I'm certainly happy to go down and meet with you when they're knocking out in Southcote Lane. Silchester Road we know is a major problem, but it's not as easy as straightforward. But certainly we can have a look at that so we can observe, but we can bring that back to a future committee. So thanks, Sam, again for the petition and coming tonight to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. You can take a seat, but we'll move on to item 5, which is a petition response request to improve safety on Hamilton Road with Crescent Road. Mr. Penman, are you introducing this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this is a response report to a petition that was received last year. And just a note from an officer point of view that there was some really good content, really good ideas in the petition and in the presentation. So what we've aimed to do in the report is to just try and run through those ideas and provide an officer response to those. Also highlight some of the things that we are doing around the junction, such as parking restrictions and some decluttering, which we think will help. Ultimately, the conclusion is that there isn't an evidenced road safety issue. We acknowledge some of the issues being raised. We also acknowledge locally that there is a desire to reduce the volume of through traffic there. There has been on and off for a little while. That's acknowledged later on in the request for traffic management measures report. But also to highlight some of the implications of tackling that in some of the ways that have been put forward, such as one-way plugs or full road closures. So we're certainly not closing the book on that. We're not proposing to do so, but it needs a lot of careful thought. And it will need funding, whatever the solution may be. We just need to understand that it will be potentially controversial because it will have quite a widespread impact to close any of those roads. So in conclusion, we're not proposing to make any changes or to recommend any changes to the junction as it stands, but we acknowledge that there's further work to be done to discuss through traffic volumes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. Councillor Ennis, you want to add something?
Back. Yeah, thank you, James. Thanks for the report. I mean, I went out and met the residents who do the streets, safety streets for the school. Absolutely brilliant, outstanding work and really good local community support. I know they may be a bit frustrated with some, the reason that we're not doing anything at this moment in time. We need to go back and liaise with them because they, they've made some really good points here. I'm glad you said, James, about future, not maybe necessary now, but I think it's worth keeping it open with the changes that are going to be made to the bus lane and some of the other changes that are taking place in East Reading that may further create a problem that we can review and look at. And I think we do need to keep it open. At this moment in time, we're not saying any more, any modifications at this moment, but certainly we should keep an open book, an open mind into how things go once the bus lane goes in on that. I know it's not necessarily about bus SIP, but it may, exacerbate further the problems. But I do take your point about, and this is the point about all traffic, we just heard one now, all traffic modifications, changes. Some people like them and some people don't. And then that situation earlier on, we had a lot of people interested in getting double yellows in, and then we were met by a load of others who didn't. And that's the point about the complexity of some of the changes we want to make here could upset. We want to get uniformity, unanimous, well, not maybe unanimous, but certainly consensus. But I do think we need to keep it open, keep an open situation with that, and to contact the activists, the community champions of that area, to ensure that reassure them and thank them for all their work, but also to look and see how we can resolve the situation. So I agree with the report.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. I think there are two main elements to the report. One is the school street and how things can be improved for the school street and keeping kids safe on their way to and from school, and the other is the junction of Crescent Road and Hamilton Road. The two are interrelated as well, but they're the two broad elements of the report. And Green councillors support looking at what can be done to reduce traffic across that area to improve both of those situations. And for the school street, my personal preference is to use cameras to enforce. I think that would make things loads easier and possibly generate a bit of revenue for the council as well. On the Hamilton Crescent junction, I use it fairly regularly as I'm sort of to and fro around Park Ward, and I don't know if people are particularly familiar with the junction, but it's a crossroads but at an angle. So if you're coming from Crescent Road heading east, you get to the junction with Hamilton Road. There's currently a give way sign and marking on the road, but to cross that junction and to check that no cars are coming from your left, because of the angle of the roads, you don't just have to look 90 degrees to your left, you have to look round another 45 degrees to that to see to see where cars are coming from, which I would challenge anyone to do that in a moving vehicle while also checking the other way that cars aren't coming and looking out for kids and other things that might be happening at that busy junction. And I just don't think that can be done while moving in a car safely. So I think that junction is a problem. It's not a particularly easy to use junction, and it is dangerous. I have seen cars just run straight through from one half of Crescent Road to the other half of Crescent Road, barely slowing down at all. And yeah, if I'm seeing that occasionally, it suggests that it is happening fairly frequently, and it doesn't take too much of a leap from that for a cyclist to be coming quite quickly down Hamilton Road. A car was across the junction, and we've got a road accident. The report talks about different measures that could be taken to tackle the problems at that junction, and rules them out one after the other, sometimes for very valid reasons. The measure that I don't think is ruled out particularly convincingly is putting some stop signs at that junction, which would be a fairly easy, straightforward measure to implement. It's not going to be massively expensive, and it would help to improve road safety at that junction. Addington Road, the junction of Addington Road and Alexandra Road, has a similar setup. It's a more straightforward crossroads, to be perfectly honest. And as you're travelling up Alexandra Road, you get to the junction with Addington Road, and as you look around at the junction, you've got large trees making visibility not as good as it could be, and there's a stop sign there. And I would say that junction is far easier to navigate than the Crescent Road Hamilton junction, which has all of those elements. And then in addition to that, it has the angle of the roads, meaning you have to look round quite a way, as I said. So I think there is a precedent in Reading for using stop signs at similar junctions. I'd say Crescent Road Hamilton is a worse, more dangerous junction, and I'm struggling to see a disadvantage of putting a stop sign there. I looked at the guidance for putting stop signs in, and I think we do have some leeway to do that if we wanted to. I think legally we could put a stop sign in there. There's nothing that stops us doing that. So I would like to amend the recommended action for officers to have another look at putting a stop sign or stop signs in at the Hamilton Crescent junction, and a report coming back on that councillors can then consider and vote on. So I'd like to move that amendment, please.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I'd like to endorse what Councillor White has just suggested, but also I wanted to say that how pleased I was that the officers considered everything very carefully, and I particularly like the suggestion of removing extraneous clutter, because that's something I find can make junctions a lot more dangerous than they should be. And actually just today, my partner has had the results of an MRI where he went over a junction that he had been distracted and he'd looked at the wrong traffic light in this case, and he went straight through thinking he could at low speed, had a head-on collision, and he's now got a bulged disc, which is now a permanent injury from a fairly low speed collision just from being distracted at a junction. So it's really important, and I think something like that, it could be a very cheap change, actually removing extraneous clutter and maybe replacing a give way sign with a stop sign rather than adding something extra. And yeah, I just felt that it would be good to endorse that. But yeah, thank you for all the work considering all of the options, James.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Penman, do you want to respond?
No, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, so just in relation to the stop sign, obviously the report's been published for a little while now and gives our initial officer view. I mean, what I would say is that, you know, where the give way stop sign, give way, proceed when it's safe to do so. So I know it seems counterintuitive, but So a junction that is angled as such should be encouraging competent and considerate motorists to slow down, stop until they consider it safe to do so. So, I mean, fundamentally, certainly I can take that away if that is the decision of the subcommittee and we can come back with that. But I don't see that that's going to make a significant difference to this situation, because if the visibility is such at certain approaches that a driver feels they need to stop anyway to ensure that it's safe to go, that's what they should be doing. So it's achieving the same. I don't fundamentally see what difference that's going to make.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. Councillor Ellis, do you want to add to it?
I mean, I hear what Councillor White's saying, and I hear what the Officer James is saying, Mr. Penman. I mean, I think I'm just looking at the trying to look on the report, because I do think we do need to review this. We need to look at this situation. No, it didn't say that we're going to review it. We're going to come back, but I do believe that we should review. We should look at it for different reasons. I mean, I think if we want to put a stop sign, that ultimately might be the end of the review. I'd like us to see what else we can do if things change. So I think, you know, maybe a commitment. We should vote with the 4 that's currently there, rather than add in. But I think part of the, I know we're not talking about bus sit, but it is at the in the area, is that we should monitor the situation carefully with a view to making changes, or to look at it, to certainly review it. That may or may not mean a stop sign, but I was thinking about if there is an issue, because we've had a discussion earlier on, didn't we, that it may not, you know, because it might not end up with major negative impacts. But I do think a commitment needs to be made that we need to keep our eye on that area, not to end it now. That's certainly what I'm going to say to the school streets people, is that we are keeping an eye out. Go out and see them again and have a look again. You're more than welcome to come out. We can set up a time and go out, and then maybe look post when the measures are in place to see how it's going. That's what mine would be, not writing it into the report about a stop sign, if that's okay, but to look at a review. I know you want to and you want to push a vote, but that's fine. I would recommend we stay where we are, but certainly we hear what you're saying. I think we need to be hearing what we're saying in East Reading, and therefore not to shut the door on this going forward. That's my view, is that we vote on what we've got, but we acknowledge that there could be changes there. There might not. There could be.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back briefly on that. Yeah, thank you very much, through you, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Ennis, for the commitment not to shut the door on that one. I think our concern would be that a simple change that could be put in pretty easily gets wrapped up in something that's a bit bigger and rumbles on. So I think I'd rather add a recommendation for something to come back specifically on the stop sign. That could be done easily, simple report, next committee meeting. That wouldn't be particularly difficult, I imagine, where there's a review of the impact of a bus lane and rat running, and if it worsens rat running and so on, could take quite a while to come back and be a bit more of a comprehensive review. So I'd like to keep the separate recommended action in there to draw up a scheme to improve the Crescent Hamilton junction with stop signs, and for that to come back to a future meeting of the traffic committee.
Thank you, Councillor White. So I don't see any more indications. Did you want it to come back?
I mean, so what you're asking for then, just to clarify, Councillor White, is you want to add an amendment. So you've moved and seconded an amendment. So we vote on that amendment, don't we? Really, that's what we do. We vote on the amendment, and then if that's passed or not, we then vote on the 4. I think that's fair enough.
Okay, Right, then we'll move forward to a vote. Can we vote on the amendment? All four? And against? I think that's majority then. And can we now vote on the recommended action on that? All those four? And against? I think that's carried majority. So,
But keep that, sorry to butt in, but keep that
Yeah.
commitment to to monitor the situation.
yeah. So I'll ask the committee obviously to note the report and also take in the recommendation, see what we can do. We'll keep that in and take this forward. Yeah. Yeah, everybody agree with that? Okay, thank you. Right. James, go. Thank you. We'll move on to the item 6, which is a private use of the Kings Road bus lane, which I have interest. Can I ask my colleague, Vice Chair, Councillor Lozenzi? Sorry, Lozani. Sorry, it's a slip of the tongue. My apologies. Come and take the chair for this item, and then I will leave the building and I'll return. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Lanzoni of Caversham Ward, and I will be chairing for item number 6, private hire vehicle use of Kings Road outbound bus lane. This is the result of the statutory consultation. We have discussed these items at the previous meetings. I will start letting James once again giving us an summary of the update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So following January's subcommittee meeting where there was a decision made to proceed to statutory consultation, and just for clarity, that was on allowing Reading Borough Council private hires to use Kings Road bus lane, and it also restricted the Hackney carriage vehicles to Reading Borough Council licensed Hackney carriage vehicles. We've undertaken the statutory consultation. We've had a really high response back again, 849 responses, of which the vast majority were in support. Item 3.5 just gives a brief breakdown, and we've got the full objections in the appendix. So what we're asking today is members to consider the feedback that's been received, and as per item 3.17, it's just decision whether to implement the change or not. And the process that would follow is itemised in 3.17. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm aware there is a public speaker, a member of the public, Mr. Kamran Sadiq. Please approach the table. You must know the rules by now, 5 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity once again. As this has been going a long petition from the Reading Private Hire Association in regards to Reading Private Hire drivers to be allowed to use access to the Kings Road outbound bus lane. Over the years, we've been monitoring the situation on the Kings Road. Our very first priority is public safety, safety of members of public walking across the roads, public safety as in children walking across the roads to go into Kings Road College. One thing I would strongly recommend is if to go ahead, we see volumes of traffic going up and down that Kings Road, speeding quite fast as well. You know, a handy thing would be is if the introduction of a speed camera was put there, which would be very safe. Members of the public would see, you know, drivers that there's a speed camera there. That will automatically reduce the risk of drivers driving fast and causing collision. There have been reports in the past saying that it's a high risk area for collisions, but in the last 12 years, there's not been one single accident reported by a Reading private hire driver on the King's Road. 12 years ago, the inbound King's Road bus lane was authorised to Reading private hire drivers on I think it was an 18-month trial period, which was then further extended by 18 months. And after the 2 trial periods recommended, it was authorised to us. There's not been one single accident again reported in this bus lane from a Reading private hire driver, which goes to show and prove the nature of how seriously we undertake our professionalism of our jobs. Our passengers, members of the public, their safety is our utmost. That's what we are. We are trained professional drivers, and we always take that as our high priority into consideration when we are travelling on the King's Road. At the moment, the issue we have is we have out-of-town vehicles who are coming down and using that King's Road bus lane. At the moment, I believe there are almost 600 SODC, South Oxfordshire District Council, Hackney plate vehicles. I believe more than half, over 300, are driving around in Reading at the moment, consistently using the volume, you know, the bus lane, the outbound on King's Road. They won't use the inbound because there are clear signs up there over 2 years ago that these are for authorised vehicles, i.e. Reading private hire, Reading Hackney carriage vehicles only. Over those last few years, again, the volume of traffic has reduced by a drastic amount because these out-of-town vehicles are not using them, and there's not been one complaint since those signages have been put up as well. So we are kindly requesting the same to happen on the opposite side as well, because not just the SODC vehicles we are looking at Fareham, who are what we call the undercover Uber drivers, who are using these bus lanes. We've got New Forest. We've even had Portsmouth drivers coming from Portsmouth, working in Reading and using these bus lanes. They are not making any contributions to Reading Borough Council licensing anybody. We work for Reading. We represent Reading. I have my badge on today. I represent Reading. I am proud to be a Reading private hire driver. When we started off our association, we could have named this any association, but the reason we put up was Reading Private Hire Association is because we are proud to be Reading private hire drivers and we represent Reading. Our utmost safety is to look after our trade, to look after our members of the public, to look after our children, safety aspects. These vehicles, you've got, you know, the Wokingham Borough District, you know, their vehicles driving down the bus lane. You've got the West Berkshire vehicles. None of these are making any contributions. We are paying our licenses to Reading for our drivers, for our vehicles, for our badge, our operators. You know, the list just goes on. And this is what we requested, that if we were to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 councils, vehicles out of that bus lane and just be authorised to Reading private hire vehicles, you know, Reading Hackney carriage and the Reading buses, the way it has always been to be like that. If those signs go up, you're taking out 4 sets of volumes of traffic and just allowing the 1 set who are actually from Reading who deserve it. That bus lane is so vital to us, especially when we are picking up children, you know, SEN children who are, you know, we're taking to, you know, their schools and stuff. Children get late, parents get worried because they haven't turned up at the centres. They ring up the offices to find out what's going on. The response they get is, unfortunately, sorry, the driver is stuck in traffic. In the afternoons, there's never a problem because the same route is used on the opposite side where the drivers come through the bus lane with no problem at all. And it's a less worry for the parents that to make sure that their children are home safe on time as well. The same thing goes for when we are picking up passengers from the Royal Berkshire Hospital. Lots of passengers we're picking up who have intense treatment for the likes of chemotherapy, radiotherapy. There's been numerous occasions myself when I've picked up passengers and I'm coming and I come down Oldham Road onto the King's Road and it's just standstill traffic. But what really hurts is then I see we've now got Slough, Windsor, Maidenhead vehicles who are coming down. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't want to be too drastic. I wanted to signal that the time is finished. But
I didn't realise 5 minutes went so quick. Sorry.
I won't let you start again then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Ennis, do you want to come in, please?
I do follow that. Yes, I do. We've had a lengthy discussion, haven't we, over this period? We've had, you know, there was a petition in 2023. I think it was 2023. It was, you know, in Tony's period, and it's now coming forward. And I'm really pleased it's coming forward. We had a discussion at the last traffic management, I believe we did. and the informal consultation and now the formal consultation, which has hugely been completed, by private hire and their taxis and their supporters, which is fair enough. I certainly support the permanent change to allow authorised Reading only private hire and taxis, obviously we've still got it, but private hire vehicles to be able to use the bus lane in the outward bound Kings Road. And I'll go through it. I won't try and be as succinct as possible. It's my comfort. It's always my comfort zone. That's as a councillor, as a long-standing councillor who prides himself as a trade unionist and a working class person to support hard-working working class people who are serving the people of Reading, and they're there, out there. I've always felt that's what we should be doing. And I like to congratulate Cameron for representing his members over this period of time now. He's been outstanding. I think he's been hugely persuasive, hugely responsible. The relationship that Reading have got now with the RTA, and we want to thank the RTA as well that are here tonight. The colleagues there in ASIV working well with Reading. There's major issues, as we know, in the trade. Certainly post-pandemic, it's been difficult for them to make an honest living, to make a living, and I think we support them. And I'm really pleased tonight, if we pass this, we could show that we're listening to our private hire, colleagues who are working hard to serve the people of Reading, and that we also listen to the RTA and any concerns. There are concerns which are in there, which I'll come on to. I think we must support our Reading drivers. I think Cameron has explained it extremely well. I think part of this agreement is to authorise Reading only. Bit of a NIMBY really when it comes to that, to be honest with you, a bit of a proud NIMBY. Is that, if Reading people are working and paying their money into Reading, then therefore they should be benefit, and it should be promoted more than somebody. And I've seen them. I mean, I see people living near me with Fareham number plates and they live in Reading. They don't pay in Reading. And I think it's something that we got to stop to allow you people to breathe, to allow you to be able to make money. And this is a fine way of doing that. So therefore, that's number one why I think we should support it. We should support our Reading drivers out of area Fareham, South Oxfordshire. They're using the bus lanes, but they're not paying in to the thing. And some of them are using them as taxis, which gives them that added benefit. And that's not right. And that has an impact on our taxi colleagues as well. So I think we should stop out of area vehicles using our bus lanes, and this will be a huge start. We talk about safety aspects and whether or not we go permanent or on a trial basis. Well, we've got an example, the 10-year bus lane across the road, which has been used and with no incidents from yourselves. I think we can take that into consideration. That is not to say we do not look at safety, and the police have come in and made the point. We cannot really ignore that. We can't ignore that. We shouldn't ignore that. We should be looking, and we've mentioned that, as you know, colleagues from the Green Party have mentioned it. Will raised it early on as a Redlands councillor, Councillor Cross, is we need to be looking at safety aspects on the King's Road. We've had discussions with officers. Officers are clear. It is a complex issue, and we should not be negatively impacting. So we say we're worried about safety, so therefore you can't use them. I think that's negatively impacting a section of the population that uses the lanes. I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think what we should be doing is authorising tonight the changes, but looking at the safety aspect and not blaming. I think if I was a private hire driver and someone said you can't use that because we're worried about safety, you're blaming me. I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can do that because your record, as you pointed out, is impeccable on that area, impeccable. So I think we do need to look at safety, but we need to look at it in a holistic approach, and not impacting on one section that used that, one section of the industry, the trade that used that. We went down there, didn't we? I went down there since, with the RTA and the Private Hire Association, and we watched with near horror, didn't we, a vehicle that's driving down the inner lane of the two next to the bus lane, and there's I'm worried about cyclists. I think cyclists are less likely to be hit by vehicles I don't know, but my view, less likely to be hit by vehicles using the lane, more likely to be hit by vehicles coming along and then going right into Kingsgate Street. I think that's one aspect of it. I think the other aspect is the Kings Road, not the Kings Road, the college, another aspect of it, and then the roundabout. That does not involve private hire. That involves traffic only. Therefore, I think we need to take that to one side. We need to move that to one side, and we need to have a discussion about how we're doing it. So I am in favour of implementing the changes permanently as soon as practically possible, whilst taking on board the safety aspects of the road in general. What we can do or not do, because as I'm not a traffic officer, I'm not skilled. There's not many of you around because it's such a skill. You would have ideas as to whether complexities or not would be the case, rather than politicians. I think we should listen to our experts, which some politicians don't like doing, but we do. I do. And we need to listen to the experts of how we can go forward. But certainly tonight, I think we should support. I support wholeheartedly the changes to bring in as soon as possible to and to support our private hire trade, to thank the Private Hire Association for the exemplary way you represent your members, to thank the Reading Taxi Association for the responsible manner that they've taken part, and we move forward. So I'd like to move that we make the changes permanent and we allow Reading only private hire vehicles to use the outward bound Kings Road lane, bus lane.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Ennis. I've got Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Cameron, for coming in once again to make your case. It is always very compelling. I've said this before. I've always found it ludicrous that one side of the road does one thing and the other side of the road does the other thing. So thank you, actually, everyone, for coming in on this matter. I think we get the biggest attendances meeting out of any subject, so it clearly is very important. The consultation clearly reveals a huge amount of support. I mean, just on a purely monetary basis, it's going to mean reduced fares for Reading residents who are using private hire. It's going to waste less fuel. It's going to cause less air pollution because people will be able to more rapidly go through stuff. It's going to waste less people's time. It's going to waste less of your time because you can get round and get another fare more quickly, which is better for you. Because sitting in traffic is boring. Let's be honest. For anyone's matter. In terms of safety, I do think that I've seen there are concerns around injections related to safety. I think it is, even though it's incredibly important, I think it is somewhat of a red herring, and it is actually a separate matter that we should tackle under its own item with the due care and attention that it should be given, that doesn't muddy the waters on how a lane of traffic should be regarded. I think as many councillors here said that there are clearly safety issues on the Kings Road. But I don't think it's really related to this. It's a wider issue. Just on a matter of sort of a point of order on the agenda, there are two options proposed. Are we considering the vote on the permanent traffic order or the experimental? I see John saying that. The other thing I just want to point out, the item that sort of under 3.17a, it does say that regardless, we have to identify funding. Is there any indication there will be any funding, or is this going to be put on a list and wait for a while? So that's a quite an important question, because I don't want to come back to this. I don't want to waste these people's time to come here again and again to say what's going on. I don't want to be sat here in a year's time at this meeting saying where's the money, because I would like to really drill on that, because that's an incredibly part of this, because we spent a lot of time talking about this. It's an incredibly important point, and I don't want to waste any more people's time on that. Thank you.
I think I can answer those two questions. The first one is we are going to vote what has been consulted on, which is the permanent traffic regulation order. The second one, the answer is this is not going to go into the traffic management measure list. So this will be a one-off, and the 0.317 will be applied, but is not going into the list pending for funding. I've got Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, thank you to everyone that's come along and everyone that's spoken this evening. I think we might have an outbreak of consensus against all the odds. Yeah, well done to Cameron yet again, coming along and speaking from the heart, and yeah, reminding us of the issues that are involved. I haven't got loads to add. Yeah, I'm mainly a cyclist and a walker, and I cycle in on both the inbound and the outbound, and I don't think I've ever had any problems in either of those bus lanes. So I can't see the changes we're going to make this evening and are going to make much difference one way or the other. I think it is safe as a cyclist to use it, and yeah, it will remain safe. But I would separately, as others have said, like to see some road safety work on King's Road, and I'd be interested in hearing from Councillor Ennis when we're going to do that work. Are we getting a report back to a future traffic committee, for example, or what's the way that work's going to be done? But yeah, for the Green councillors, fully support the recommended action. We think it's about time. I think I supported a petition in 2010 on this, if my memory serves me correctly. Councillor Ennis, Manzoor Hussain was the lead petitioner, I remember. Unfortunately, it's taken you a little while to get round to it, but better later than never, and maybe a change of lead councillor has helped. Who knows? So yeah, I'll stop waffling now. We'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor White, just to let you know, Councillor Page is listening to you.
Yeah, I know. And
he's always there.
The only thing I'd add, just to change topics. The only thing I'd add, just to change topics slightly, and I wasn't quick enough to follow what you said, Councillor Lanzoni, but are we in full agreement that this will be funded this financial year? Is that what we're thinking?
I will let Councillor Ennis answer in that if he wants to get back. What I meant is that this is not going to go into the traffic management measure list, and 3.17 applies as it's written. I've got now Councillor Barnett Ward, which signal she would like to speak, and then Councillor Goss.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologise for not being there in person, not well enough to come into the Civic, but this is an important meeting, so I wanted to attend. I don't have a hand raise button, which is probably a good thing, so I might have done a point of order when Councillor Ennis was speaking, because he forgot to mention this is Thames Ward, and the Thames Ward councillors have been very involved with, yes, he's owning up now, and he's glad that I'm not in the room, have been very involved with working on road safety here, and for that reason it's been uncomfortable for me to think about the vehicle access to the bus lane because of the concerns that we have as ward councillors, but I agree with colleagues in the room that the Speaker Cameron has made his case very clearly and has backed it up, and I can completely see the unfairness in not allowing this based on what we fear might happen. But I certainly want to say to my residents that if committee is endorsing this today, that's not because we are not concerned about safety. We are. It's just that there's no evidence that this would impact on safety, and that certainly Thames Ward councillors will continue to lead on pushing for safety improvements around this area, which we all agree are needed. Separately, I'd like to raise again with officers the issue of how people are engaging with these consultations. Can we please talk to IT about making it so that only one response can be received per device coming in? It's very difficult when you get repeated identical submissions to know if those are the different people who think exactly the same thing in exactly the same words, or whether we've got people trying to distort the responses by responding multiple times. And I think it's not the first time we've seen it in consultations. It's not unique to this consultation, and surely it's not beyond the wit of the council IT to make sure that we're getting unique responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett Ward. Councillor Goss.
Thank you. I am something of a purist whenever it comes to access to bus lanes, particularly as a cyclist and one who used to live on the King's Road. But we have had again and again a compelling argument for why private hire vehicles should be allowed in the outbound lane, given that they are allowed access to the inward one. So in terms of consistency, it certainly makes sense. And if we are allowing it to be Reading only, as is the case, then that presumably will be reducing the number of vehicles that will be in the outbound lane as well. So just want to say on that basis, I'm more than happy to support the proposal that make this a permanent regulation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goss. Councillor Ennis, do you want to get back?
Deep apologies to Councillor Barnett Ward about talking about Redlands, but because it is in Thames. But I do remember Councillor Cross making the points, about safety, and that's what focused my mind. But you're absolutely correct. It is in Thames Ward, and I'm really sorry for that. And we can come and have a look, maybe as ward councillors at some point, maybe after the election, to have a look at what's going on down there ourselves. Because I think the point is, Councillor White, is we got experts here, and as politicians, and I've done it myself, I've been around, is I want a crossing, I want a double yellow line, I want this and I want that. Maybe for my leaflet, or maybe that I can show that I can do it. What I think we need to do is have a proper discussion, hence taking it out of the the next or whenever, because there is a hell of a lot of agenda and put items put forward regarding traffic management, which we need to look at and prioritise. So we'll have a discussion. I think we need a discussion regarding safety on King's Road, because it's not as straightforward, because most of the time you'll find nobody goes more than 15 miles per hour, because I know someone suggested it and it was in the comments were laughable, like I go at 5 miles per hour, as Councillor Moore has made the point, sitting in traffic. So it's some areas, sometimes it's speeding, some areas it's not, and I think we have a holistic discussion around that, where we go. I'm sure you'll come back and say how it's going, but I think we do need to do that. Without saying I want a zebra crossing there, or I want because it makes me look good. I think we need to listen to experts, and we need to see what's out, because there may be some things we can do and there may be some things we can't do. And it's interesting that the police have made that point, and it was made about Reading Borough Council. Reading Borough Council is not the traffic enforcement agency, it is the police. We want that, and Councillor Page has made on numerous occasions the request that we'll take that, but we can't. It's the police that actually enforce outside schools. It's the police, or traffic wardens do, but it's the police that enforce unsafe practices. So I'm not challenging them. I know and respect that they've taken part, and it's really good that they've taken part in the consultation, but it'd be good to work with them to see what they can do, because there are unsafe practices that go on in a lot of our roads, and certainly, in the King's Road itself. I think Councillor Moore makes a very good point, because I don't want to be sitting here in a year's time, and the point about within the budget, we need to find the money because it is outside. I'd like to think it ain't massively, but as the officers will tell you, if you put forward money, finances there, something else has got to go, isn't it? It's not finite. It's not infinite budget. It's not an infinite budget. So we do need to have, again, a proper discussion as to how we find that finance to be able to do it. But I couldn't agree more with you that really we want to get it done as quick as we can. And that's what I said, as soon as practicable. I said it better the last time. You know what I mean. As soon as possible, within practice as much as we can. So I do take your point on there. I think that's it. So I've apologised to Councillor Barnett Ward. Don't upset Councillor Barnett Ward. It is her ward. And therefore we move forward and move the permanent changes to allow private hire Reading-only vehicles.
Thank you,
into the
Councillor
King.
Ennis.
Okay,
Councillor Singh, you flagged you wanted to make a point. In my mind, I was planning to finish with Councillor Ennis, but I've got a bias towards Councillor with an accent. So if you want to make a point which has not been made before, quickly.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the point is on the cost of it, and thank you for your submission. Always supported this in the past as well. It's clearly the data shows that you have impeccable record in terms of road safety, and I'm assuming that, of course, there's a cost of 10K to implement this, but I'm also expecting a lot of this licenses which has been acquired from different other councils. They come to Reading now. They'll come to Reading now for licensing. Therefore, the cost comes back to us. And in terms of benefit for residents, they will have a reduced cost because the time and the fuel spent. So overall, there's a win-win situation for us in this case. So absolutely, we'll be supporting that. In terms of public safety, I totally agree. There's an enforcement element which police needs to take care of. At the same time, it's the councils have duty of care in terms of identifying public safety measures or traffic calming measures. So overall, we agree with this and we support you guys on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. So nobody else has flagged that they want to speak. So I propose to vote on these measure and on the implementation of the proposal as printed. Who's in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I will then, fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Keeping. We're gonna swap chair again.
Thank you, Councillor Lanzoni. Got it right. Moving on to item 7, Upper Redlands Road Zebra Crossing. James, who's introducing James? James Clements, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the subcommittee on the results of the statutory consultation and to consider the next steps. The scheme is intended to provide a new zebra crossing on Upper Redlands Road, which will not only improve access to St Joseph's College, but also provide improved facilities between Elmhurst Road and Alexandra Road. Consultation resulted in 87 responses with an overall support rate of 91%. At the time of the original design, the proposed bus stop relocation appeared appropriate. However, after careful consideration and acknowledging the concerns raised through the consultation process, officers have revised their proposals. The revised proposal reduces the current shared use parking availability on Upper Redlands Road from approximately 33 metres to 15 metres to facilitate the relocation of the bus stop and to move the zebra crossing further away from the junction with Elmhurst Road. The location of the new bus stop has been carefully made after visiting the site on several occasions and through assessment of the highway constraints on Upper Redlands Road. The removal of the 18 metres of parking in this location is not expected to have a detrimental impact on parking in the area due to the existing provision elsewhere on Upper Redlands Road and Elmhurst Road. Officers are therefore recommending that the subcommittee approve a statutory consultation be undertaken to revoke the parking bays as detailed within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cross, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank officers for their detailed work on this and really thinking carefully to listen to feedback and develop plans that would work for the area. As I think I've mentioned previously, this scheme was one of a number of schemes that the council submitted a bid for when Councillor Page was the leader. Unfortunately, this was the only one that was funded, and a limit on the council's ability to fund its ambitious plans to make cycling and walking safer has been the lack of funding from central government, but nevertheless, credit to be given to the government for funding this scheme. And I'd also sort of like to talk briefly about the wider picture. This will be one of a number of pedestrian crossings in the area. I believe on this crossroads, 3 of the 4 sides will have a safer form of pedestrian priority crossing, which is to be welcomed. This is a key area used by university students, members of the public, and children from several schools. So this is a welcome improvement to safety. And I'd also like to register my thanks to Councillor Ennis, who has been working proactively with one of the schools in the local area, Redlands Primary School. There are a lot of issues with cars and parking, and it's really important that this council is working constructively to encourage people to safely walk to school, leave the car behind, and I hope that that constructive collaboration with local schools and residents who are looking to develop school street schemes can be continued, as this will be very, very beneficial to the ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I'd like to echo that support of all the work that the officers have put in, and also the community that's worked really hard to make it happen, and the funders. I think the university as well has donated to help fund that. I don't think that was mentioned in the report, so it'd be nice if the minutes could mention that the university helped as well, and it's been a great collaboration and really nice to see it actually evolving as well, not just the original plan rolling out regardless, but listening to the minutiae and making sure to get it right so it will really work and improve road safety in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, Councillor
Hornsby Smith.
Yeah, Councillor.
Okay, I share it's good news that this is going to come forward, and I'm fully in support of it. I just have a query coming back. You know, you've said that you had quite a lot of consideration about the location of the bus stop in order to make sure that it was safe. I note the objection 58, which talks about the potential conflict between the exit from St Joseph's School and the location of the bus stop. My query, I mean, presumably you've assessed that and you think it's not such a dangerous situation. But my query is that at the time when I was involved more closely in Redlands politics, there was certainly representations made that one of the problems was that the so-called buses, it's not a bus stop, it's a coach stop for school transport, and that a number of those coaches were sitting there for a number of hours between when they dropped off and their next job. So I would be concerned to make sure that we have up our sleeves at least some kind of potential restriction on the amount of time that buses are allowed to, or coaches are allowed to drop off and pick up there. Because what I don't want to see is something which has been flagged up in, and I think quite reasonably in objection 58, about a potential conflict there and buses hanging around when basically they don't need to. So I just wanted to raise that as a concern while still supporting it and looking for assurance that, yes, you've looked into that and potentially sort of will take forward the idea that the buses ought to be in some way restricted onto how long they can stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I don't see him. James.
Yeah, thank you, councillor. So the comment in the objection that you refer to was the original location and placement of the bus stop, which was intended to be outside the school entrance and exit for drop-off point. That was part of the reason it's been relocated. So it's now relocated to the west of the school, basically where the current permit parking is located, hence why we'll be taking up some of that permit parking. So we've moved it away from that school entrance where there was potential issues with sightlines on that entrance and exit. In terms of the restrictions around the timing of the bus being stationary, I can't speak to whether or not that is possible, but I will certainly take away that's a concern, and we can consider how long those buses are allowed to be in that location.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more indications, so can we move to recommendation action? The subcommittee notes the report and agree with the recommended action in point 1 to point 6. Are we in agreement with that? Yeah. Thank you. Move on to item 8, which is the Oxford Road bus lane approval concept. James Clements, could you introduce it?
Thank you, Chair. So this report is further to our previous report to the subcommittee in January, where the subcommittee approved that officers proceed with the BSIP bus lanes, including the westbound bus lane on Oxford Road between Pangbourne Street and Norcott Road Junction. Whilst the designs that were appended to the previous subcommittee report did set out the details of the scheme, officers failed to clarify to the subcommittee the requirement to revoke the existing eastbound bus lane between 816 Oxford Road and Tidmarsh Street, nor seek approval to undertake a consultation to this effect. The removal of this westbound bus lane is required in order to deliver the new westbound, and therefore officers are recommending that the subcommittee grant approval to consult on this basis prior to the commencement of any work.
Thank you, James. I don't see any more indication. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wendy Griffiths.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this consultation and support the recommendations. I don't see it causing any problem, and it should help traffic flowing through that area. So, yeah, all for it. Thank you.
I don't see any more indication. So can we agree to the recommended action and subcommittee to note the report? And are we take this? Thank you. Moving on to item 9, which is CivTech School Street approval to make experiment order. James Clements, to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the subcommittee on an application to introduce a new school street on Great Knolly Street for the Civitas Academy. The school ran an informal consultation last autumn and received 90% support to their proposals. An application has subsequently been received from the school this January, setting out those proposals for the school street. The proposal is for the closure of Great Knolly Street to all but eligible vehicles immediately to the east of its junction with Bedford Road, which is shown in Appendix 1 of the report. The proposed time of the road closure would be from 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and 2:55 to 3:40 in the afternoon, Monday to Friday during term time only. Under the terms of Reading School Street schemes, residents within the closure will retain their access under the eligible vehicle category. Officers have had a stage 1 road safety audit conducted by an independent road safety auditor. Only identified one concern, which related to the number of advanced warning signs in the area. This has been addressed and is indicated again within Appendix 1 of the report. On this basis, and following our assessment of the application, officers are recommending the subcommittee approve making an experimental traffic order and implementation of this new school street. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Page?
Yeah,
Can you?
Chair, thank you. Like Adele Barnett Ward, I don't have a hand raising facility on the link sent by the council. That's probably deliberate, but either way, my apologies to colleagues for not being with you in person. As the chair will be aware, we have engaged for some while with the head teacher, Mrs. Ducker, and the chair of governors at the Academy about the increasing problems and concerns about drop-off and collection times outside the school. It can be described at best as anarchic and at worst as highly hazardous to the children and indeed pedestrians in the area. There was a volunteer involved who unfortunately is no longer available. It shouldn't have to rely on a single volunteer. We will be looking to obviously enlist people from the school, parents, as well as local residents, around what will hopefully be a more ordered arrangement that is the subject of the proposal this evening, which we strongly support. I'm grateful to council officers and the Sustrans people for having engaged with the school. It's probably no secret to say that the school was initially somewhat sceptical, but I think the process of engagement with council officers and ourselves has led them to recognise that it is worth pursuing the proposal, and it can only result in improved road safety. It might also encourage a number of local parents, and some of them, like with most primary schools in the borough, are very local, but there are still parents in the borough who believe that they should almost have the right to drive little Johnny or little Julia right into the school itself. The proposal here will, I think, incentivise parents to actually consider whether there are alternatives such as walking, heaven forfend, or allowing and encouraging cycling. And cycling will be considerably safer now along Great Knowledge Street. I certainly wouldn't recommend anybody to cycle along that stretch of Great Knowledge Street at either drop-off or collection time at present. But with the proposed arrangements, I think it will be considerably stronger. I know you, Chair, and Councillor Rowland feel likewise. So I would urge the subcommittee to endorse the proposals this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. So I see Councillor Ennis here.
Yeah, I'll make a point. I think we need to thank the, this is a very good report and it's good news, and thank the Civitas school and the community for being able to provide or committing to provide volunteers to ensure that works. I think this is the 5th one now, James. I'm not sure. It's the 5th one, and we want as many more as possible. And the one at Wilson, which I go by every morning, is well marshalled, and the one at Crescent Road is as well. We need to promote them more. It's difficult to get volunteers. I think the answer to the earlier petition is the school streets, personally, myself, but finding volunteers to do that would be another matter. The point was made, and it's been made quite a few times, about cameras. We're not at that situation yet. Cameras, some areas, I mean, London authorities have got cameras, but it's a different situation. But we're not at that area. We're not in that situation as of yet, and therefore we're relying on volunteers. I spoke to the volunteers at Crescent Road and they loved it and they thought it was better. They'd prefer to stand there and talk to people, good old fashioned face-to-face discussions about safety rather than a camera or impersonal. So I think that's going to work. This is going to work. It's a closed area. I think it's really good. And we need to promote as many more as possible, because if you listen to the pattern, all our wards, we know schools locally in our wards, it's Councillor Moore's ward in Tarlas, there's issues around, and my own and nearby, where on neighbouring wides, there are issues about schools and parking and traffic, major issues. People, I'm not as rude as Councillor Page. Going to miss him really. Well, not really. Going to miss him big time. But people do have to travel onto work. They drop the children off, and they have to travel onto work. So it's difficult sometimes. But the less cars, though, the better the situation would be. That's a fact, and this will only help. So thank the community, thanks Civitas and the community for doing it, and the other 4 schools, and hopefully we can promote more. Whilst in the future, looking at other methods of ensuring that our schools are safe for people to travel to.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. I don't see any more indication. So can we move to recommended action? Can we note the report and agree with the action 1 to 5? Agreed? Yeah, thank you. Item 10, waiting restriction review program. James Penn to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. So these come around quickly. So we're now on to the 2024A waiting restriction review programme. So we're bringing tonight the list of requests of potential schemes for investigation at this stage in inclusion in this programme. So we're asking members tonight to decide which of these is or is not investigated, included in that programme. What we'd then do is undertake those investigations, provide ward councillors with recommendations, and then we'll bring those back to June's subcommittee meeting, when we're also intending to bring back the results of the statutory consultation on the 2023B programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. So as subcommittee knows, I normally take these ward by ward, and the first we have is 2 in Abbey Ward in March Patch, and I am Councillor Page. I'm happy for them.
We would support both. Just to clarify for those who don't know, Benbridge Place is the cul-de-sac that runs down the side of the Verto. And in both these cases, we seem to have a situation where lining has taken place ahead of traffic regulation orders. So it is best, if we're going to get them properly enforced, to have that legal TRO sitting behind them. Otherwise, any appeals to the tribunal will be upheld. So strongly support both of these, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page, for taking that. And the next item I have is in Battle Wall Loughborough restriction on Portman Centre. Councillor Hacker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Is that all the information we have? Because I'm just wondering what on earth is there actually after? Is it double yellows?
Yeah.
On the way into the car park? Do we know?
James.
Inevitably, yes, I think that's what it's going to end up being. At the moment, it's just asking for restrictions, but yeah, I would imagine it's going to be double yellow lines around junctions, entrances. Unfortunately, these tend to come back quite regularly. Yes, there's an argument to go out there and do a holistic thing, but parking pressures around there for not just the business owners, but also the visitors, people using the facilities, are a bit tight. So yeah, we're dealing with them as they come up.
Thanks. I've got no objection to having a look.
Thank you, councillor. Right, okay, we move on to the next item, which is in Caversham Talbot Close, install restriction preventing parking near the island. And also one in Caversham Height, the Warren, to remove the existing restrictions and disable parking near spaces. So Caversham, one we agreed to?
Yes.
Yeah. Council, thank you. And what, Caversham Heights? Yeah?
Yes, agreed.
Agreed. James, you got us. Thank you. And also we have one in Caversham House in the Warren, request to remove disabled bay. Agreement with that one as well?
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Next ward we have is Church Ward. We have 6 of them, Chadford Road.
Yep, I've got them, Chair. Okay, so on those ones, the only one that I'd query, I mean, the rest fine. Devonshire Park, I just wanted to find out which bit of Devonshire Park, because there's some flats down at the bottom there where there's inevitably more conflict in terms of parking. But the road at the top, I mean, it's most of the houses have got drives which would accommodate about 3 cars. So I'm keen not to waste officer time. If it's round the top, you know, but by the junction with Shinfield Road, no. If it's down the bottom by the flats, then yes. So maybe you can comment on that. Thank you.
Mr. Penn, yeah.
I regret I'd need to come back to you. I don't know off the top of my head, but certainly we can take that away and we can do an initial desktop exercise and liaise with you early on. That way we can decide pretty early on whether we take that further or not. So thank you very much for the comments. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Otherwise, your agreement with the rest here? Thank you. Next item we have in Coley Park, Lesford Road, restriction. Prevent vehicle parking on pavements on Lesford Road. Coley Park. Yeah.
I mean, this is a problem not just restricted to Lesford Road on Coley Park at the moment. There's quite a lot of verge parking and pavement parking and a bit of a combination of both. What I was struggling to see with this is what restriction we could put in place, because I was thinking there was probably a double yellow line there already, but I may be wrong. Just sort of asking what we might be able to do realistically there on the corner, isn't it?
I'm afraid that would be part of the investigation process. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Well, let's proceed with it, and we'll see. It might be some wider work as well we can do. Of course.
Yeah. Then James can send him. Proceed with this one, and you can send him an email. Okay. Next item: Emma Green, Lowfield Road, restriction prevent vehicle parking on Bend and Junction, Caversham Park Road. Council.
Thank you. Yes, there are a number of issues with this bend. I'm aware of it, so I definitely think it is worth investigating this instance.
Thank you. Are you got that? Got your agreement? Take that forward. Thank you. Okay. Then the next item we have in Case Grove, Bourne Avenue, restriction to obstructing vehicle parking on the side of the bend of the road. Case Grove. I mean, I'd receive no objection. Yeah, happy to proceed. Yeah. Next 3 items we have is in Kentwood Ward, Thermal Avenue, Oak Tree Road and Alma Road for restriction. Councillor Keeping?
Yeah, Kentwood's Labour councillors would like to proceed with all 3 of these. I would like to just mention that we have a bit of an issue with parking being a contentious issue in Kentwood. And although the last item is removing parking bays, this is done in deference to the residents that live there and find that they are being blocked in because the parking bay is there, but they've all had, practically all of them have had their pavements lowered there. So I would suggest that this whole bay is now defunct and needs removal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keeping.
Yeah, agree for a consultation on this 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Go ahead, James. we'll move on next to Norcote Ward, which is Morriston Close and Spare Road restrictions. I received no indication from the councillors. They were happy with it. Anybody from the subcommittee? Proceed. Okay, we'll proceed with those. I had indication. No objection from. Next two we have, next one in 1 Redlands Ward, which is Newcastle Road. Councillor Cross.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm happy that this one has been included. I spoke to officers about it last year. There's been a lot of issues with the bin lorry not being able to get down to that part because of badly parked vehicles. So I would support this being proceeded with.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. And next item is Thames Ward, Addison Road.
Yeah.
Restriction.
No objections from the Thames Ward councillors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Next item we have is in Tylers 6, which is Chichester Road, Childry Way, Mayfair, Lowfield, New Tylers councillors.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on a few of these. Chichester Road, Caldwell Close. In theory, I'd want more information on which side of the junction, on both sides or one side, because they are very different on both sides. At Childry Way, I'm quite confused about, because I'd be interested to know how vehicles are obstructing access, because there's a big old pavement in front of the play area. So I don't know how a vehicle could, unless the vehicles are actually parking completely on the pavement. I'm not sure how they're obstructing that play area, but I'm not against it in theory. Mayfair, I agree with. Lower Elmstone Drive, definitely. Chapel Hill, again, more information. It's a very, very long road separated by a roundabout. Is it yellow lines on an entire side of the road? Because that's a very, very, very long stretch. So I'd like more information on that before. Approve for in principle, but I want more information on it. And then the other two completely agree with. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. James, you got those? Happy to proceed with those. Thank you. Armour Road, was that okay with the Tylers Council? Did I include that one? Armour Road restrictions? Yeah. Okay, next we have is 3 in Whitley, Falmouth Road, St Agnes Way, and Tidman Road. You had an indication from the council. You agree with that? Thank you. We'll take those forward. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the item 11, which is a request for traffic management measures. Mr. Penman, to introduce us, please.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this is the request, the list where we record requests for traffic management measures across the borough. So this is reported twice annually in the March meetings and again in the November. The main decision items for tonight are Appendix 1, which are the new requests that we've received since the last list update in November. So there's a few on there to decide against the officer recommendations. And Appendix 2, where there are any proposed amendments to items that were on the principal list since November's meeting. Then finally, we've got Appendix 3, which is the principal list. Certainly, if there are any schemes on there that members feel are no longer required or might need a bit of tweaking, if not now, then certainly we can have discussions offline, and again, potentially we could get those changed for or propose those as being amendments for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. Then I'll move towards the first one, Caversham, 20 Mile Hamden Road.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor. And the next one is Kentwood Pedestrian Crossing, Pottery Road.
Yes, agree with the recommendation from the officers.
Thank you, Councillor. Keeping?
Yeah, obviously, because my name's on it, then I want this one to go on. Just like to mention that the date for the incident reporting, since that date, I am told that there has been an incident there with car versus child. So this is why this request has gone in now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keeping. And the next item I have is in Norcourt, pedestrian crossing, Broccoli Close. Yeah, I agree with those ones. Oh, thank you. And next, Tarless Ward, one-way system, Fern Close and Tyre.
Yeah, that's
Councillor
come
Moore?
from me via residents. I'm very happy to retain it as per officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next we have is Caversham pedestrian crossing, Browns Avenue. Councillor.
Yes.
Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Lorenzi. Okay with that one. Next item we have is in Caversham and Thames Ward, 20 Mile, where is Lower Caversham. You happy with that, Councillor? Thank you. We have awaiting restrictions. Next one, Appendix 3. I normally take these by ward as well. Can we agree? I mean, I'm pretty much, I've read the paper subcommittees. Is there, if there's anything particular, then we can single that out. Is subcommittee happy if I take those recommended action listing?
Chair, sorry,
for the
I think
next
that's the list. There is nothing to approve in that list. It's there for reference, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so are we in agreement with that? Yeah? Agreed? Take that forward. Thank you. Then I'll move on to the next item, which is item 12. Parking Service Annual Report. Liz Robertson.
Chair, while officers are switching over, I would like to raise a point of order on this report. I don't know when's the best time for me to do that.
Right, thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Adele.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't see you. You're not on camera for me. So if you were
Okay.
if you were indicating, I couldn't see it. Sorry. It's simply that Appendix A is using the old ward boundaries from that were abolished in 2022. So it's actually not providing us with any useful information. So if I look up my own ward on Appendix A, it says Thames on street 50. Penalty charge notice issued, and I think, well, that seems strange. And I go off and I look at it street by street, and it's badly wrong because it's actually the old Thames ward, which was mostly Caversham Heights now. Can we please have these figures put into the correct ward boundaries? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Liz, sorry, Liz Robertson, do you want to take that?
So this is just an information report on the parking services activities for 22 to 23. So it's just giving you the financial and statistical information on the service.
Right, thank you. Councillor Ennis.
Yeah, I won't be too long. I'd like to thank Elizabeth and her team for the hard work in parking services. I mean, it's an extremely comprehensive report. Details nearly every street. Interestingly, some of the streets who you think there's no enforcement, and there's quite a lot. And I think it's really good. And I think it's really good that the efforts that are being made in the town centre and also outside, because I've always asked for work being done, not just in the town centre, but outlying areas. And I think you can see there's quite a bit of that going on. you know, and the massive challenges and work that's going on within parking services. As we know, it's a major issue for all councillors. So that's all I want to say is thank you for all the work you've done and thanks for the report. It's extremely comprehensive and very readable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Councillor Hacker.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add my thanks as well. I always enjoy this report. It's perfect for when a resident contacts you and says, oh, there's never been any enforcement. And I'm going, right, in that case, I shall flick through the report. For example, I've never seen a ticket being put in place on my street. But I can see on here there's been, I think it's 18, I just checked. So it's really useful statistical information. And I'll be interested to see, as we move to the electronic permits, if we see any variation in this data, because I know quite a lot of people like to check the windscreens and go, this person hasn't got a permit, but we won't have that. So it'll be just interesting to see how things change next year. But yeah, thank you for this useful report.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Andrew Hornby-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, well, obviously, yeah, thank you very much. I found it very interesting to read as well. So thank you very much for that. Really dodgy. I won't park illegally on my street. That would be that would be suicide. But anyway, I just wanted to ask 3 scrutiny questions about some of the data here, if I may. Page 234 at the top table shows that in terms of enforcement agents for parking PCNs, the successful collection in 2018-19 was 27%. 22-23 it was 19%, and I would want some commentary on that. The second one is on page 240, where it's about the blue badge allocation, and I'm wondering why there were 1,920 blue badges allocated in 21-22. And that figure's fallen to 1,566 last year. And my final point is page 245. I was a bit surprised and disappointed to see that there are, and it's nothing to do with parking necessarily, but there are no disabled spaces at Green Park Station. And I'm surprised at that. And I wondered if that's something that we should look at. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm very sorry. Your first question on page, you said page 234. Which table were you?
That was the top table. The table below shows the warrants issued to the enforcement agents for parking PCNs. So it's about successful collection. It's that bit of it's that column.
So the successful collections. Oh, sorry. So you were asking why it dropped?
Yeah.
Right. I'd have to go back and have a look at the statistics for that one as to why it has gone down. I mean, the current year is where we're still working through the warrants. So the warrants are valid for a year. So although it's for 22-23 and 21-22, there's still some warrants that we've got that are valid and that are still being pursued, or that there's people that are on payment plans. So they're still being worked through the system, but I can go and have another look at the statistics. Your questions about the blue badges, I'll have to go back to my colleagues in the Customer Fulfilment Centre. They gave me those figures for that. And sorry, just let me remind myself of the third question. And I'd need to check with my colleagues about Green Park Station as well as to what the situation is there with those. I was quite surprised as well when I saw that there was no disabled parking, but I just haven't had a chance to go back to ask them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz. Could you sort of include that to the subcommittee, the outcome? Thank you. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank the officers for their hard work on this. It's a fascinating read, as last year. And I wanted to echo what Councillor Hacker said about being able to respond to residents when they come and tell you that things aren't happening, and you can say definitely that they are. So I just wanted to pass on my thanks as well.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your support. It's, as everyone said, it's an incredibly useful document for us to see how things are going in this arena. Just a question on page 254, Appendix A, parking penalty charge notices by streets. If streets are not on the list, what does that mean? Thanks.
If the street's not on the list, it's likely they've not had enforcement there. Was there a particular street that?
No, it was just more that some of them have got 000, so they've not had anyone visit. There's been nothing happening. So I assume there's been no enforcement happened on those, but there are some streets which are just not listed at all.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, what does that mean in terms of one that's got 0 versus one not listed?
So they should be listed. So if there's any particular ones that are missing, then
Yeah, I've just found 5 in Tarhurst that are missing just off the bat. So just wondering what that means if there are missing streets. Well, no, I mean, I'm sure it's, and maybe that means that it's not a problem, but I'm just sort of because as people were saying, it's nice when residents say what happened to these things. It's nice to come back and say what's happened by street, and if I can't get that information, it's very difficult to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Yeah,
It should be included, shouldn't it? Every street should be included. So if you could provide that, Councillor Moore, to Elizabeth so they can put it in there, because there may have been enforcement on them, and I thought every street was included.
Yes, every street should be included.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, could you send those across, Councillor Moore? I don't see any more indications, so can we agree to the recommended action?
Can I just ask a follow-up, because I'm not sure that Councillor Barnett Ward's, I'm not quite clear on the outcome of that one. So just as a point of clarification, when this is published, will it be with amended ward stats to reflect the current ward names, or will it be using the out-of-date wards that are on the version that we've seen?
So at the moment, it's a request has been made for the web team to update the Freedom of Information page with it. So what we can do is we can update with the current report, and then I can go back and have a look and see about amending the wards. Apologies, I'd not realised that the reporting tool that I used was still using the old streets and not the new boundaries.
Thank you. Don't see any more indications, so can we move to recommended action point 1 and 2? Subcommittee, no? Yeah. Agreed. Thank you. Thanks, Liz. Next item we have is item 13, Station Hill alteration to existing restrictions on Friar Street and Gerrard Street, result of consultation. Darren Cook to.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out the results of the statutory consultation linked to the Station Hill development, formerly known as Friars Walk. That includes alterations to the taxi rank and waiting restrictions located along Friar Street, as well as the pay and display bays and waiting restrictions along Gerrard Street. Public consultation resulted in the receipt of 1 letter of support and 1 objection, details of which can be found in Appendix 4. Officers have provided their recommendation in the report, but are asking the committee to acknowledge the report and confirm how they wish officers to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Do I see anybody? Councillor Annis, yeah.
Thanks, Dan, for the report. I take it the trade has been involved in this, report and the changes, and they're happy with it.
There is no response from the trade. The developer has been in communication with the trade throughout the proposals from the outset. So we have had some emails confirmation from the developer to confirm that they've been in communication with them, explaining what the changes are.
Thank you. I don't see any more indications. So can we move towards the recommended action, the subcommittee note report and points 1 to 4? Agreed? Thank you, everyone. So the next item we have is discussion parking permit, and I would ask all the public and press, if there are in here, to leave the building. This provides a private and confidential under the Government Act, Local Government Act 1972. Member of press and public should be excluded, considering the following items is likely to disclose information in paragraph 1, section of 12A Act. So I would ask everybody to leave. Could you switch off the microphone? And thank you everyone who joined online as well to disconnect.